Okay. Hey guys. So this video is going to be a follow-up from the video called I'd Rather You Didn't Watch This. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, it's basically just a video where I talked about how I felt like I had fallen off, how I felt like my productivity had kind of gone down the drain. I had a bunch of inflammation in my face because I'd eaten a bunch of stuff that really I knew was terrible for me, and I just kind of went really crazy down that sort of rabbit hole. And I was just kind of feeling super low. And I wanted to share that part with you guys because on my channel I talk a lot about becoming what you must become and constantly chasing, achieving big things and productivity and becoming an executive in a company or an entrepreneur or whatever it may be for you, chasing your dreams really. And I kind of began to feel like my channel looked as though that's the way I kind of always was. And you know what? That is the way I always want to be, and it's the way I aim to be, and it's the way I am most of the time. But there are times where I fall off, and that's why I titled that video, I'd Rather You Didn't Watch This, because it was hard to upload and be super frank with you guys that, I'm not always like that, even though I try to be. And I know there's some of you guys who might look up to me, and I look up to others, and I think it's just so valuable when you can see that, everybody here is a human, and sometimes they fall off and whatever. So, a couple things that I want to address before I get into this video. First thing is I am getting over a bit of a cold, so if you guys hear my voice sounding a little bit weird, I was hit with one thing after the other. It was kind of like, like I'd had that fall off, and then I had, had a cold, I had food poisoning, I had a whole bunch of different stuff. But I'm back now, and yeah, you're gonna have to excuse me if I have to clear my throat or whatever a couple times. My aim is to not pause this video because I got some good feedback and some direct messages from people who had messaged me about my last video, saying that they enjoyed how kind of raw and authentic it was. And so, I want to give you some more of those kind of videos. Excuse me. Another point that I want to touch on is I do have some notes here just to make sure that I give you guys as much value as I possibly can because I did think about this quite a bit. This is going to be a follow-up to that video where I talk about sort of how I got back on the train and how I kind of got back to where I am now, which I feel again I'm operating at that high level once again. The kind of the side of me, the side of Spencer that you guys see on my channel, I feel like I am operating at that level once again. Full disclosure, it was only about 7 to 10 days until I got back to this point. And I understand that some of you guys won't be able to relate where, you might fall off or, you're in a really bad low and it takes you guys maybe a few weeks to months to years to get it back. And so I am going to address that a little bit. And I assure you that regardless of how long it takes you or where you are in your journey, whether you're on or off, there's going to be something in this video for you guys. So if you guys have the patience to watch through the whole video, like I know some of you did the last one, then I'm going to do my best to make it worth your while. So with that said, guys, I don't think I've forgotten anything. I'm going to just jump right into this video. As always, please let me know if you guys like this style, if you guys like me being a little bit more authentic and just really just no editing, no cuts, and just straight up talking to you guys like you guys are, one of my close friends, which you guys are. So let's get into it. I'll just kind of start. So the first point that I wanted to touch on is I was really on for a long time. Like when I say on, I mean like I was getting up so early. I was doing hours a day of language learning, studying. I was working really, really hard in my current job. For those of you guys that don't know, I'm a chief operating officer in a 40 plus million dollar company. We got there in 3, 4 years, so it's really, really fast growth. And there's a lot that's demanded of me and my peers as well, not just myself, but my peers as well. So I was super on with that. My fitness super on, my diet super on, relationships as well. Like I've made and developed several relationships, and I think that's such a key, especially networking. I was really, really good at that and doing a lot of solid sort of outreach to people that I think were interesting, especially on X and other platforms that I really enjoy, most notably really YouTube and X. But I had ended up going to Texas and having a really good time and kind of got some food poisoning when I was there, as I mentioned earlier, I believe. And that kind of just messed me up, and I took that as a kind of an excuse to just, as I started to feel better, I felt, oh, I'd probably have lost so many calories from being sick and whatever. Like, I'm just gonna, pack on the garbage and let go of everything that's important to me. So, I stopped being very active. I ate like an insane surplus of calories. I mean, there was one time, again, being completely transparent with you guys, there was one time where, and this might not seem that bad, but for a channel that talks constantly about doing the best they can to become everything they can, this is something that I want to share with you guys, that there is this like struggle, and it can be embarrassing, to talk about these things, but I like, again, it's more valuable that it's shared with you guys so you guys can get some value. So anyway, um, I went to like the store and I got like, I have like a pretty big appetite for anyone who knows me. Like I can eat a lot, and I just bought like as much chocolate and like garbage and whatever as I possibly could. It's actually pretty funny. A small tangent for those of you who happen to give a shit. I'm actually lactose intolerant, so I can't like take any lactose products whatsoever. Otherwise, I just feel terrible. And I ended up going to the store to pick up some like lactose pills because I knew I was about to eat like boxes of like ice cream bars and fucking just chocolates. And honestly, I may as well have just drinking a few gallons of milk at that point. And it's funny because the lactose pills, for anyone again who's interested, lactose pills don't do anything when you're lactose intolerant, and then you basically consume 6, 7, 8,000 calories worth of lactose in one go. Uh, so yeah. Anyway, point is I just kind of really fell off. Again, stop. No more fitness. Like all the stuff that was good for me, I stopped doing. All the stuff that wasn't good for me, I started doing. And it's really hard to again operate a channel like this or operate at a certain high level where people in your life know you as a certain person. And even you look in the mirror and you know that guy or that girl as a certain person, and you look and that's why I harp on that video so much in that last video. Um, I harp on so much about inflammation is because it's not like I'm so scared that now I'm going to be put in this sort of like cancer promoting state or something given inflammation, although that's also true. It's more just that you look at yourself and you're like, wow, like I don't see the person that I want to see looking back at me. And so that's why I harp on that so much. That's why I can be so hard on myself with respect to that. And I'm sure some of you guys are the same. So anyway, the first point that I really want to touch on is like I saw the other side. I remembered what it was like because, like I said, I had spent months being so on that I forgot what it was like and how hard it can be to get back on your grind or get on your grind for the first time ever. Like I saw how hard that was, and I think that sometimes, being completely honest, like my content can be very valuable for those who are on their grind and they want to be reminded of things that keep them on. But I think that to get on, it's very difficult, to just hear. It's good to meditate. It's good to take time to yourself. It's good to do X. Good to do Y. It's good to work out. It's good to eat high quality foods. Like no shit, that stuff's good, right? But I think it was so valuable, and I'm so thankful that I really did fall off because, like I said, I saw the other side, and now I'm beginning to realize, how difficult it can be if you're if you're a young person or even an older person, and it's hard for you to get where you want to go. I see now that challenge, and I think it's not even about seeing and understanding, it's about really like feeling that position, because at the end of the day you do need, in order to start to change and go where you want to go, like you are going to need some sort of kick in the ass from something, and it has to be bigger than just a YouTube video telling you to meditate, right? And again, I'm not trying to bash my own content. Like I said, it's very valuable, and I make it for me maybe 5 6 years ago who would have needed these messages repeatedly to really kind of get into his head and begin to ruminate on those ideas and actually take action as a result. But I just want to reassure you guys that I've seen kind of the other side and I remembered how hard it can be. So on that note, one thing that I did realize is that one thing that makes things easier when you guys finally kind of begin to get on your train, you begin to see what it's like when things start to go right, is that systems make things easier. So what's so important about this is that when you have a routine or you have kind of like a chain that just, the first domino falls and the 10th domino is going to fall because all the dominoes in between just naturally as a result of pushing that first domino will fall, that makes things easier. I mean, like, this is the way to explain in plain English, like, this is the way habits work in the brain, and this is why they work in the brain, is so that the brain and the body can conserve energy. It's the reason why when you walk into a room you turn on the light with the same hand every single time, or you tie your shoe, you start with the same shoe every single time. It's so that you don't need to think, you don't need to waste any energy. The brain can be doing other things and fix other problems, as opposed to constantly needing to be like, okay, well, how do I tie shoelaces again, and what foot should I start with? Okay, left foot, I'll do the right side shoelace on under the whatever, right? Like that would just take so much time. And so the point is that it can be very challenging to start to do big things and anything that you want in your ideal routine. It can be difficult to start, but once you begin to build systems, and again, the most basic system is the routine, in my opinion. Once you begin to have that, you see that things begin to get easier, and you're not going to necessarily see it in day one or day two, even though your excitement to start a routine, which is very, very common, your excitement to start a routine might carry you through day one and day two. You'll see that after the lull of day like 13, 14, where you're kind of like, I'm not that excited about my routine anymore, and you start to let things slip and whatever, you'll see that it picks back up on day, 25, 35, something like that. And things do begin to get easier. And so systems make, once you kind of found the holy grail and you're really on your shit, systems make things easier. And so use a routine, because like it's an absolute lifesaver. So you don't need to think. Now, two of the best sorts of routines, in my personal opinion, the first one is time bound. So it's kind of like, okay, at 9 a.m. every day, here's what I do. At 10 a.m. every day, here's what I do. That's really, really helpful. And the reality is that even if you only do like 60% of what you've planned out, Like, let's say, you do the thing at 9 a.m., you do the thing at 10 a.m., you don't do the thing at 11 or 12 or 1 or 2, but then you do the thing again at 3 and 4 and 5. That's infinitely better than if you hadn't attached any time to anything, because then you're just waiting on that moment. You're sitting on the couch, you're like, okay, when motivation strikes, I'll do it. But that's not the way you want to operate. You want to say, okay, when the clock strikes, whatever time, then I do it. And of course, you're going to miss sometimes, and that's okay. But if you hit it, sometimes you're going to see how valuable that is. So that's the first kind of routine that I would really go for. The second one is kind of a sequential routine. So the first domino might be something that's really easy, or like easy for you to do, or it already is a habit for you. So it might be like, okay, like, so for example, one thing that I started years ago, and I have some friends actually now that I believe still do this, is that, I wanted to make sure I was like brushing my teeth 3 times a day or whatever it was, right? I'd had the 1 or the 2 or whatever, and I wanted to do 3 times a day. Which, by the way, if there are any dentists out there and that's too much or too little, I really don't give a shit. Not the point of the video. But anyway, I wanted to brush my teeth 3 times a day, right? So I woke up in the morning, I'd brush my teeth, and I'd go to bed and I'd brush my teeth, and that'd be 2. But how did I get that third time? And so what I started to do is every single time before I went to the gym, I would brush my teeth. And I began to associate this like fresh sort of mouth feeling with like a good workout. And so sequentially, what would happen is like I knew I was going to the gym, and so what I do is right before that, I'd place this tiny little thing that would always be this like cue of like, okay, oh, I'm going to the gym. Right before I go to the gym, I'm gonna get my gym shoes on, get my gym clothes on, whatever, brush my teeth, and go. So a sequential routine is really valuable too. And the beauty about the sequential routine is you can put so many things before and after, that you can really begin to pile things on. So that's the first thing, or not first thing, but that's something that I would add. Um, on systems, so about building systems into your life, one thing that you need to understand is they come kind of organically. So like once you begin to kind of get back on the horse, or you're on the horse for the first time, you'll start to see that it's like addictive to be productive. It's the same ways you might be addicted to a game, or well, especially games. Actually, that's a really good example, because you make progress in games and you're addicted to that progress. The same thing happens in real life. It's just that in a video game, you're addicted to being the virtual man, the virtual guy, right? You did a good job. You killed the bad guy. You did X. You did Y. But it's so much cooler to be the man in real life. And what you'll see is that once you're kind of in the practice of kind of being the man, like organically, you're going to want to create these systems. You get to this point of being like, okay, like what else can I optimize? What else can I throw in that sequence? Like I mentioned before, like, oh, I noticed I have this like time slot at like 10:35 a.m. Like I have this thing that I do at 9 that takes me till about 10:30, and I have this thing that I start at about 11:30. So this middle gap of like 10:35, something like that. Like I have this little gap. What can I throw in there? You know what? Maybe I'll just do like 10 push-ups. And it's weird because these systems begin to evolve organically. So again, if it sounds like it's so hard to develop a system because you're not feeling good right now, rest assured that once you begin to get those first couple wins, you're going to want to create these systems. And so you're going to be able to return to this video and be like, okay, there's the sequential sort of routine, and then there's the time-bound sort of routine. And again, routines in general are only one sort of system that you can begin to build into things. And in other videos, I'll get into these other sorts of systems that I use that I find super valuable. So yeah. Um, yeah, so I already mentioned, yeah, you need to get to a spot in your life. You need to find a way to get to a spot where the system becomes addictive. And by the way, I'm going to kind of back up a little bit, guys, and remind you guys that the reason why I'm telling you all these insights is because I was able to get back on the horse in like about 7 to 10 days. Okay, but the reason why I was able to do so is because I had this former knowledge in my head, what I'm sharing with you now. I had this knowledge in my head, and so once I could tap into my sort of idiosyncratic systems, my individual systems that I knew applied to me. So for example, I have a couple cornerstone habits that I know that when I'm doing them, like things just fall into place. The sequence begins to start, the first domino gets pushed, etc. So I'm sharing this with you because I was able to get back on relatively quickly. Again, there's some that might be able to get on in 3 hours. They might have a cheat meal and think, oh, fuck me, I got to get back on my life. And they're back on. That's amazing. I wasn't that guy. But anyway, I'm sharing this with you because once you are on, having these understandings and building these systems and seeing these perspectives will prevent you from staying off too long. So anyway, now let's get into kind of like how do we get on that first time. Like, so I had fallen off. I felt like shit. I looked in the mirror. I hated the guy I saw. And that might sound intense, but I did. Because I knew I was able to do better, which is the same reason I'm talking to you guys, because I know you guys are able to do better. But anyway, the whole inflammation thing, I was off my routine, and I was in that place where I saw the other side. I remember what it was like Like, Frank, I'm not talking about you here. I'm talking about me personally. I remember what it was like personally to feel like a loser. Now, again, I don't know. You might laugh and think, dude, you're not a loser. You've made X, Y, Z progress in terms of, you know, income and friends and whatever and all the things that a lot of people enjoy and that of course I enjoy. But I felt like a loser and I saw that side and I was like, shit, like, how do I start again? And there's this kind of like hard pill to swallow, honestly. Like, I'm going to tell it to you completely straight. Like, there's not going to be any course, there's not going to be any like strategy, there's not any hack, there's nothing that you can buy that's going to start your kind of like system or get you on it. The reality is that it is discipline. And it's not sexy to say that until you have discipline and then you're like, "Oh yeah, discipline's really sexy, right?" And for the record, girls think so too. Like, if you're disciplined, like as a man, if you're disciplined and they see that in aspects of your life, like in their in other aspects of your life, like that's just attractive, okay? Because that means they can trust you. They can trust your word because you actually like live by your word. Anyway, the reality is to get back on it, it's a discipline. Now, there's not much I can tell you to like jumpstart your discipline muscle, but what I can tell you is there's probably a bunch of shit in your life that's depleting your ability to be disciplined. And that's because you constantly are giving in, you're constantly doing the cheap dopamine stuff. And you guys, you've heard this before. This part of the video is you've heard this part before. You're doing a bunch of stuff, you're watching stuff you shouldn't be watching on the internet, you're eating stuff you shouldn't be eating, you're playing games you shouldn't be constantly playing. There's things that are just like pooling your brain with dopamine. And so why would you ever be able to do the difficult thing when all you're training your brain to do are the easy things that get progressively easier? Because your brain systemizes, your brain begins to, again, like we mentioned the domino, everything becomes a trigger for these easy dopamine sort of things. Like, you put your head on a pillow before you go to bed and you're like, oh, maybe I'll, turn on the hub. Or, you sit on the couch and you're like, oh, there's my video game controller. Maybe I'll pick it up. Like all these things. It's going to make it harder for you to do the difficult thing. And so, no, there's no real way to like jumpstart your discipline other than the decision and the action to just be disciplined. Do the thing you said you were going to do, even when it's difficult. There's no real way to jumpstart it, but there are ways to make it easier, which is generally speaking like trying to take space from the things that are constantly giving you this cheap dopamine. And so again, if that means trying to, not play a video game on one of the days of the week, or that means going 7 days and not watching the hub or whatever, doing a 30-day challenge, attempting a 7-day challenge, something like that, like those things really help. So for me, I kind of went cold turkey where I was like, all right, I used accountability. I used accountability with someone in my life, a couple people in my life, where I was like, look, on this day, I'm going to start doing X. I'm going to be back to myself. And I'm lucky in that the people around me know me to be a certain person. And so, like, I feel like I can only go so far down the hole because people will start to be like, dude, what's going on? Because again, they know me as a disciplined person, etc. And so, like, I'm lucky that I've built that network and I'm lucky that I've spent enough time on that the people around me know that is my default. And so when I'm not doing that, they begin to ask questions. And so anyway, so I have that kind of accountability to other people in terms of my reputation, but the same thing will happen to you. Um, and so, okay, so you might ask, like, why do you need discipline? Like, is there some other way to get things sort of going? And again, you might not have this question, but I'm going to give you the answer just in case later down the road, after you watch this video and you begin to kind of get on your path, if any of these questions pop up, hopefully you'll have the answer just sitting in your subconscious that can beat the shit out of any excuse that your conscious brain wants to make for you to kind of stay doing the stuff you shouldn't be doing. So the thing is that discipline, okay, yeah, I made sure I wrote this down to be absolutely kind of clear. The thing is that discipline builds momentum. So think about discipline as like the first act, okay? Because once you, like, for example, when I'm on my diet, which in another video I'll explain to you guys if you guys are interested. But anyway, when I'm on my diet, the first day or two or week at max requires discipline, okay? It requires willpower and it requires discipline. But week 5, 6, 7, and well before that, by the way, doesn't require discipline. I have momentum. I don't need to like kick myself to do stuff. It's momentum. It feels good to keep building. It's kind of like when you have, I'll use a video game example because I think a lot of my viewers play video games, and I know I definitely have. Um, it's like when you are leveling up and you're doing well and you think to yourself, you know what, like I'm gonna go for one more level, or like you got the big expensive weapon in the game and then you're like, you know what, like I'm gonna go fight the boss like tonight. Like I'm not gonna wait till tomorrow. I'm gonna fight them tonight. It's like I've already made progress. Like I'm going to keep going right now. Like I'm gonna build on what I have. When you have that feeling, that's momentum. Like you have momentum. They talk about this in sports as being so important, right? A team scores a goal and it's like then they just keep scoring, 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 scoring because they feel so good. They have momentum, right? And so discipline creates momentum. Discipline is almost like if you think of like Pokemon, discipline is like the Charmander, and like momentum, I would say momentum is like the Charmeleon. And then you get to the last stage, which is like systems, where now it's like it's not even necessarily about being disciplined or having momentum. A system is almost like a flywheel where it inherently will continue spinning. It doesn't necessarily require you to feel or make any particular decisions or for you to feel any particular way, which is kind of what discipline and momentum kind of are slightly. A system doesn't require either one of those. A system is just self-perpetuating. And so that's kind of the Charizard of the whole thing. And again, if you don't understand Pokemon, look it up. It was a good analogy, trust me. Anyway, so we need to start with this cold turkey, doing what you can to repress the stuff that is making you having that first act of discipline. We need to do what we can to get that to disappear, or at least to be a little bit less prevalent in our life. That will allow us then to make the disciplined decision to start something, okay? That might be going to the gym. That might be reading the book. That might be whatever it is, starting the business, doing a worksheet, whatever it might be, okay? Discipline is going to come as your first real is your first progress in the right direction, okay? Maybe before that, the precursor is, again, cutting some of the things out of your life that make it difficult to be disciplined. But I would consider discipline as that first move, okay? Really quickly, you're going to have that next evolution, which you'll feel is momentum. And I understand from where you are now, like I mentioned, I saw the other side. You're in like almost reverse momentum, okay? You might be spiraling, which is you do one thing and you're like, you think, well, I had a cheat meal today. I guess I'm going to go watch porn for 3 hours, smoke a bunch of weed, um, not do any of the things that are good for me, and do all the things that are bad for me, right? You have this reverse momentum, this spiraling. Well, when you have discipline, you have that first decision, you make it. Then you begin to build momentum, and it, like I mentioned, it begins to carry you forward all the way to a point where you now become addicted, and you want to create these systems, and they develop organically. And so this is really kind of me trying to give you, you know, what are those things called? Like a dinghy, I think. It's like those little like life raft things. When someone falls over a boat, they throw this like red and white circular thing to them, and it's like, okay, you're sinking. Just hold on to this. Okay, hold on to this. We're gonna pull you back into the boat. And this is really kind of the key. Cutting those things out, all right, at least removing the prevalence slightly. Okay, so do a 7 day challenge, do a 3 day challenge. After that 3 days, you might then have the discipline to make that first decision, which will then carry you to momentum, which will carry you to systems. Okay, sorry if that was a bit all over the place. I'm very passionate about sharing this with you because I see now how effective it is because I just did it myself. I just did it myself. This is not a video saying, here's what you should do, when you're already on the horse. This is no, you've fallen off. Here's how to get back on. Okay? That last video, I'd rather you didn't watch this. Yeah, well, I would rather that you did watch this because this is what's going to get you back, okay? Or on for the first time. So, I'm going to kind of wrap this video up. I'm going to wrap this video up with a conclusion and then a kind of a final tip that I found that's actually really cool. And you're definitely going to hear the tip because I haven't heard anybody talk about this. So I'm going to conclude by saying there is a hard pill to swallow. All of this that you want, every single thing that you want in life, is going to begin with difficulty, in that making a disciplined decision is not easy. That's hard. There are things that you can do to make, choosing that path a little easier, especially if you're someone who's already addicted to things that are keeping them down. But in general, it's going to be hard. It's not going to be comfortable. But you have to make that decision. And you've probably heard this saying before, um, is that, you know, it's so much more painful to live with regret than to live with failure, right? And so, like, keep trying. And if you fail, you fail. But try again, okay? Don't regret not trying the difficult thing and seeing what could come of it, okay? So the hard pill to swallow is that it's going to be hard. You're going to have to take 2 or 3 days, and that's why I suggest a 7-day challenge, okay? Or a 3-day challenge, okay? Just whatever you can muster. It's going to be difficult to cut the things that feel good, okay? Especially if they feel good for free. That's going to be hard, but once you cut that, you're going to see that you're a new person. You're in a new place. You've leveled up. You had your cloth armor on, and now you might have bronze armor. And is that the strongest thing in the world? Is it the most effective armor in the world? Probably not, but it's better than your cloth that you had before, and that's the position from which you're going to then be able to level up to better armor. Okay? So it starts with a hard decision. And I have nothing to sell you. I wish that I had a product here that I could say, hey, and here's where you want to purchase XYZ because this is what's going to get you that first disciplined action. I don't have it. I just have my experience and my research. And I want to share that with you. Okay, so it's going to be hard, but once you take that hard decision, you're then going to get to a place of momentum, which will get you to a place of systems, which will keep you on much more often. Much, 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 much more often. And then you can build a reputation with people that you actually like spending time with who expect you to operate at a certain level, which itself is a system that will return you back to the original system that will get you to your goals. Okay? And that's kind of where I want to leave it. Now, the last thing I'm going to add is a tip. Okay? One thing that I saw, I've been seeing a lot of people using ChatGPT lately for a lot of interesting things, and I think that one really cool way for you to use them is to ask ChatGPT to take inspiration from a book, any sort of book. You don't even have to have read it, just a book that you know has a lot of wisdom in it, and describe your current situation and what you want to do. So again, you might be somebody who really wants to make more money or really wants to have a better circle of friends, and you don't know how to meet these people or you don't know how to make that money. And ask ChatGPT to, from that book's inspiration, give you a series of either inspiring quotes or a system or steps that you can follow, specifically inspired from that individual book, about how you can go from where you are to where you want to go. Ask it to give you 5 steps, one sentence each, or something like that, and it'll just spark your idea. It'll just spark your sort of creativity for what's possible, and that might be the thing that actually gets you just that thought of what might be possible based on the wisdom coming from this book translated through ChatGPT into your particular circumstance. That might be the thing that helps you take that disciplined action because you can now envision what's on the other side of it. So I hope that helps. Guys, I know this was a bit of a longer video. This was a follow-up to that first video. I recommend that you guys watch it, even though it's titled I'd Rather You Didn't Watch It. I think that for context, it'd be important for you guys to see that, again, I'm a human too. I'm not always on. And yeah, I hope this brought you some value. I'm really enjoying doing this more authentic, raw sort of style where I talk to you honestly about where I am and how things are going. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Spencer with Must Become. Always remember that your potential is your obligation, and so what you can become, you must become.